into a law enforcement related shooting, even if that investigation never leads to any charges. CNN previously reported several federal prosecutors in Minnesota resigned amid growing tensions between state and federal officials following Good's shooting. Good's shooting was the first of two deadly shootings by federal agents in Minneapolis last month. Earlier today, people gathered for a public memorial to mourn Good and others impacted by the immigration enforcement actions in Minneapolis. And here with us now to talk more about this new information is CNN senior law enforcement analyst Andrew McCabe. He's the former deputy director of the FBI. Good to have you here with us. As always, it is good to have someone who has been in the FBI at the top to kind of walk us through what's normal and what's not. So first, I just want to start by getting your reaction to this new reporting from the New York Times. How out of the ordinary is this? My reaction was just, I was completely stunned reading it this morning. It is a complete abdication of the way that the FBI has worked civil rights cases and use of force cases for the last 50 years. These are cases that are typically opened immediately after a critical incident, and you do not need headquarters authority or approval to open these cases. These are cases that are left to the field offices to determine with their local partners when a civil rights investigation needs to take place. And as you mentioned in your intro, they're not open for the purpose of going after some perpetrator that you know is guilty. They are opened to uncover whether or not there's been a violation of someone's civil rights. Often they are closed without prosecution, but you don't know that until you conduct a full and fair investigation. That clearly did not happen here. And so knowing all of that context that you just gave us, why do you think senior officials, including in this reporting the FBI's director, Kash Patel, why would they want to avoid that type of investigation?
Well, the thing that I thought was most striking, Jessica, is that according to the Times reporting, senior officials, including Mr. Patel, directed the office not to execute a lawful search warrant they had already obtained from a federal judge because they were afraid that opening that case, pursuing that case in that way, would contradict the conclusion that the president had already drawn, which was that essentially Ms. Good was guilty of attacking the officer. And if they thought that on the ground, it had to have been because they had good reason to believe that she did not, in fact, attack the police officer, which means that it was likely that a violation of her civil rights occurred, that officer probably overstepped the bounds of his authority and violated her civil rights by killing her. So this is a very, very serious thing. It means that everyone in the FBI who knew the facts, who knew what the office was doing, was afraid that by pursuing the truth, they would expose that the president had lied about what happened in Minneapolis. And that is just, sidetracking an investigation to protect the president's false statement is something that I never thought in my life I would hear that the FBI had engaged in.
Yeah, I mean, if that is indeed exactly what happened here, which again is what this reporting indicates, as you just laid out and as we were giving the facts here at the, before we brought you on, that is pretty astounding.
Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, people should be really concerned about this. We've had all kinds of indications in the last couple of months, over the last year, that politics have been injected into the FBI in an unprecedented and destructive way. And this is a very clear example of that, and one in which the Bureau essentially walked away from an investigation that they knew they should open, an investigation that was essential to protect the reputation of this poor woman who had been killed by law enforcement action, and did that for purely political reasons. If the reporting is true, it's absolutely shocking and horrific.
And just quickly before we let you go, in terms of recourse, what is there recourse here? It's hard to say. I mean, suing the federal government over a tort claim or suing and pursuing a civil remedy against a police officer, these are very hard things to do because it's a federal agent. Those cases automatically get taken into federal court. And of course, the law enforcement officers enjoy qualified immunity in federal court. So there's a lot of legal hurdles there. But I mean, really what justice would be in this case is to unshackle the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office to do their job, to do the job they knew they should have done right from the beginning, and get to the bottom of what happened here so the rest of us could at least know the truth.
All right, Andrew McCabe, thank you so much. Stay with us. We're going to come back to you in just a little bit. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
And I also want to bring in Virginia Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw. Thank you so much for joining us as well. I want to pick up where we just left off with Andy McCabe there and get your reaction to this new reporting we're getting from the Times that we laid out at the beginning of the show.
Well, I think there's a risk that, we fail to be shocked by the next shocking revelation from this administration. But this is absolutely shocking. The idea that the FBI director would quash a legitimate and necessary investigation is absolutely outrageous. And I have listened to many of my Republican colleagues in Congress say we shouldn't have rushed to judgment about Renee Good's killing. We should let the investigation play out before we make judgments. But we now know the Trump administration quashed that investigation and isn't allowing it to move forward. Because of that, we have to understand that they're just not going to let the truth get out.
And it's worth noting that you sit on the House Oversight and also the Homeland Security committees, so some pertinent committees here. Is there any oversight that is taking place right now? Again, I think everyone knows this at this point, but Democrats are in the minority, so you're not running the committee. But what is your sense of oversight?
Well, it's important to note immediately after the killing of Renee Good, Democrats on the Homeland Security Committee called for a full and impartial investigation and for our committee to investigate the killing. The Republican chairman and Republicans have not allowed that to happen. We will have before our committee next week the heads of CBP, ICE, and USCIS, and they're going to have to answer questions about this very thing.
Right. And that was the news that we got shortly after the killing of Alex Preddy. And so now we will see exactly what they tell you all when they sit down before you in the coming days. And so let's connect the dots here, because also all of these actions now leading to this fight over Homeland Security funding for ICE. Where do negotiations currently stand as you understand, and what kind of conversations have you been having?
Yeah, look, Democrats, after conversation, have laid out 10 very reasonable improvements and reforms, common sense things that could move the negotiation forward, things that the American people support. No masking, no secret police. The government should have a warrant before they can smash down your door while your wife and children are sleeping. We've laid those out. There hasn't been any tangible substantive response either from President Trump or from Republican leaders in Washington. So right now the ball is in their court to respond to the very reasonable offer of the protections the American people need from DHS, ICE, CBP, and others.
Yeah, and the last reporting, obviously, in the Senate, your colleagues across the Capitol there, that they were going to try to talk this out over the weekend and get to a place where they could even have and begin formal talks. So it does seem like we're a ways away from any sort of resolution here. And so then my question becomes, if, this funded DHS for 2 weeks because it pulled that funding out from the rest of those funding bills, if that does in fact happen, if DHS is then effectively shut down and it starts impacting agencies like TSA, like we saw with the shutdown, several months ago, what is the Democrats thinking around that scenario playing out?
Well, if that scenario were to play out, I think what we would do is go to the American people and explain the reality that Republicans are so dead set on having masked secret police smashing down doors and breaking windows without warrants that they're willing to shut down the government over it. Look, these items that Democrats have laid out have widespread support. Most of them are 70-30, 80-20 issues when you poll and ask the American people. So the idea that Republicans would shut down the government before even engaging in a good faith negotiation about these items, I think the American people will see that for what it is. And once again, they'll recognize that if there's a shutdown, it's Donald Trump and the Republicans to blame for it. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope they respond substantively to the offer that Democrats have put on the table and have a real conversation and negotiation. Thus far, they're refusing to do that.
All right, Congressman James Walkinshaw, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The president's envoy to the Middle East visiting a U.S. aircraft carrier now in that region after they held talks amid rising tensions with Iran. More on that next. Plus, the search for Nancy Guthrie about to enter its second week. Has this new message sent to a local television station helped local, state, and federal investigators get any closer to finding her? And American skier Lindsey Vonn now just hours away from what could be some of the most memorable runs of her illustrious alpine career. You're in the CNN newsroom.